So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ben Townsend with Tracker Products. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar number 24. And Matt is with us today from the Westlake Police Department. I'm saying that right, Westlake, Ohio, just outside of Cleveland. And so welcome, Matt. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Today we're going to dig into the Westlake Police Department, their evidence room. Matt is going to take us on a virtual evidence tour. We're going to go through and we're going to talk about all sorts of things that they're doing there. I think some things that are pretty unique. We're going to show off some things today that I have not seen done elsewhere, and so I'm really looking forward to showing off what Westlake has done. Matt, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself? Tell us, maybe walk me down the road a little bit of how did you get into property and evidence? What does that background look like?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, my name is Matt Porras. I work for the city of Westlake Police here in Ohio. We're just outside of Cleveland, maybe 10 miles to the dead center of the city, along Lake Erie there. So for me, property and evidence just kind of came by chance to a certain degree. I started my career as a patrol officer in Olmsted Township PD, which is local here nearby. And then I went to Westlake a couple years after that. I've been in law enforcement for 20 years now. Did mainly patrol division stuff up until about 2015, and at which time I went into our detective bureau. Well, in 2014, we had a new chief come in, and one of the areas that he wanted to address was property and evidence. Well, my specialty at the time, while moving into the detective bureau, was crime scene and evidence tech work, crime scene processing. So I had gone to a property and evidence class through OPATA here, the local training facility, and the new chief had known that, and he says, "Hey, you're an evidence guy. You went to a property class. You know, are we doing things right?"
Yeah.
And I kind of scratched my head and opened that book back up and see what I thought about it. It was already in the back of his mind that he wanted to expand the division and change a few things around. So myself and another guy, we got involved with looking at basically building a new property room up, which was nice for us from the ground up. And we really got a chance to go out and take our time, go to other agencies that were local, take things that we liked from them, things that were based off of best practices and standards, and implement it into our build. Like any municipality, we had a budget that we had to work around, so you don't get everything you want, you get the best of what you can. And at the time, I wasn't, I'm not a project manager per se, but it was one of the bigger things I've done as far as taking a hold of a project with building and vendors and all that, and kind of run with it. So what you'll see here is kind of like what we were able to put together. It's still a work in progress. In 2016, the room that you'll see was built out, and we started moving things in from our old evidence room, which was an interior building, to this new facility, new used facility, one by one, which is nice. We got a new software program, and we were able to create that initial baseline of what we have and what we're accountable for by bringing each item in one by one, re-tagging, recoding, and getting it into location. And it really created a perfect groundwork to become involved with property and evidence. Now, after I came out of the detective bureau, I came out in 2018, the chief had hired two part-time officers to manage property and evidence. I was there to kind of look over them as we had just started the program in 16. Very quickly after they were hired and started getting involved, they got basically reassigned to other areas in the department. And the chief came back to me and said, "Hey, can you help out with property evidence a little bit more hands-on?" And I said, "Sure, I need the time." It's one of our running jokes here in property and evidence, like we always look at each other and say, no one would believe us how busy we are. But daily, is what I've learned, is it's one of the, it's busy work, it's important work, but I have a hard time convincing the other officers and people that I'm actually back here doing stuff constantly. And I leave stuff on the table every day knowing I come in the morning, I look at the clock, I go, my day's over, because I know how much I have to do, how much I have to get done that day. Right. So what happened was I did part-time, essentially, property and evidence management for 2 years, 18 and 19. I was doing half the shifts on the road as a patrol officer. I was doing the other half of my shifts in the property room, keeping it afloat. And, the feedback to the chief was we need someone back there full-time to really be able to sink their teeth into it, to get into some of the, to not just keep it afloat, but be able to move it forward and be able to do all the things needed to progress. So the chief created a position for a full-time property and evidence guy. I'm in my 20th year. I was looking for something different. I got young kids. I figured, hey, this is a great opportunity. This turned out to be my niche in law enforcement at this point in my career, and it was an opportunity to stay with the city I enjoy working for, and raise my family and have a nice spot within the property and evidence and secure myself here for a lot of years. It's Trevor Bauer contract, but it's it's a 20-year contract. I'm looking to find out. Yeah.
Well, listen, if you somehow work out a Trevor Bauer contract being in property and evidence there, we will have a lot of people that are interested in how you pulled that off. So
yeah.
But walk me through this a little bit, because I thought what was interesting when we were walking through some of your setup there. Tell me a little bit about your area, where you're located, because it's important as we get into property and evidence. You've shared with me that the Westlake PD has about 50 police officers, which is not a ton, but when we start getting into some of the pictures and what you're walking through, because of where you're located at and some of your geography, explain to us what your geography looks like a little bit that has an impact on your evidence.
Sure. So Westlake, like I said, we're about 10 miles west of downtown Cleveland. We have a major interstate, Interstate 90, that runs through our town, about 5 miles of it. Westlake's got about 30,000 residents, but by day it probably doubles to 60, 70,000. American Greetings, the card company's company headquarters, is here in town. We have a major mall, we have a major hospital, we have nightlife here. West of Cleveland on I-90, we are the first set of hotels on the highway, which does bring in some of the more unsavory characters. There's probably, I don't know, upwards around 10 hotels that we have in town that keep our criminal patrol people active. And it's an affluent town too. There's houses that go up into the multi-millions, and then we're on the other side of the spectrum is just your general apartment buildings and rentals and mid-range houses too. So across the board, we have a lot that draws people into town, whether it be thieves looking to rummage through cars, or drug dealers trying to peddle drugs into hotels, or just your normal white collar folks making a living. So
sure.
It's a good place to live. It's a good place to work. It's a well-run city, and I enjoy being part of it.
Excellent. Well, let's dig into, let's get into some of the photos, and we're going to walk through a little bit about your setup. And as we advertised, we're going to probably save the cell phone discussion a little bit closer to the end. So we're going to bounce around a little bit, but just walk me through. Tell me what we're seeing here, and describe the building a little bit, and just walk us through these photos as we hit them.
Sure. When we discussed doing the build out back in 2015, one of the thoughts was keeping the property room inside the main building. The issue with that was space. It's always space, right? It's always how much, I want as much as I can get, and you're begging and pleading for anything more than that. So one of the areas that we had some extra space, let's say, was we have an exterior garage system with dual garage doors on either end, and we house cruisers in there, and just general area for storage. But it had enough space that we were able to build out a property room with storage, and then also create these, what we're looking at here is obviously vehicle bays for bringing in anything that needs to be stored in in a secure fashion while it's awaiting processing. That was one of the concerns of mine when we were doing this build out. Is we had the secure garage, but oftentimes we'd have recovered vehicles in there, and at the same time during the day we might have just general people being escorted through. I wasn't comfortable with the access to vehicles not being secure, like within a cage unit itself. And that's where we were able to put up these vehicle bays to give it an extra layer of security while we're awaiting and pending any type of processing.
Sure. And by the way, for everybody that's watching, we got a pretty large crowd in here today. Feel free. There's a question window as we're going along. Make sure you're putting your questions in there because I'll try to keep on top of them and I'll read them off as we're going along if you have any questions as we're getting into this. So, all right, well, the next one's an extension of the last one, but go ahead and explain what
Sure.
we're looking at there.
Yeah, obviously it's just a different angle. That was one, being a crime scene guy, I took a bunch of photography classes, so I knew to get a couple different angles in there. But really, it's nice for officers because it's a drive-through facility. Like I said, you come into one end, the officers can come in, get out of the climate with any evidence that they've recovered from a scene. You're not worried about getting out of your cruiser and walking in a snowstorm up to the main doors and having stuff blowing all over the place. You get in the garage, you shut the doors down, and attached to the cage, you see the thin blue line building there. That's where I'm located. I'm inside there right now. But officers are able to get out of their car inside the building, get their stuff into temporary holding in a safe manner, which is important.
Yeah. So let me dig into something that was completely unexpected when we got on this call. But earlier when we were looking at this conversation, I asked what I thought was going to be an innocent question, and it turned into what I think may be the best part of our discussion today. But explain to me what those barrels are up at the green barrels. If everybody notices up in the top right-hand corner of the picture, there are green barrels up there. And I was sort of joking around thinking like they had gasoline in them or something dumb. But walk me through what those things are, because I'm really excited to show this next part off.
So, like I said, it's pretty straightforward for us. A lot of agencies in Northeast Ohio utilize steel plants to destroy evidence. So what we do is the initial steel plant that we use would require us to use steel drums to dispose of evidence when we're sending them out for destruction. And we buy these drums from a local place out here. And when we do our dispositions or our destruction orders for property, we stuff those drums full of everything, and then we ship them off to the local steel mill that has an agreement with us. And right there, we throw them on this little conveyor right here. Multiple agencies come at a time. We throw everything onto the little conveyor. That thing picks it up, and it drives it over to the we'll say the incinerator, where and it does that. It just takes care of it. There's no question about we're not cutting up stuff and throwing it in the garbage out here. We're getting rid of it down to dust, and it's repurposed into steel and into someone's building. So we're real pleased about that. Like I said, we've used a couple of different facilities over the years. We're real happy with the communities that are able to reach out to us and allow us to use their facilities to better our communities by not having stuff thrown into landfills, let's say.
Yeah. So that was something you were describing that as a common thing, and maybe it's common up that way. But I'm just curious for the people that are watching. Does anybody else take their evidence and put them in steel drums and take them to a steel mill where they melt these things down? Now, run me through real quick, Matt. What are some of the things you would put in there and some of the things you don't put in there for incineration?
Yeah, so the plants, obviously, they give us a list of items that they don't want in their mixed in with their steel. Things like liquid, ammunition, anything that's flammable or combustible, those obvious things. But outside of that, and they also want us to limit our plastics. They understand that some things we're not going to be busting open bags of fentanyl just to put powder into the drum. But if we have the ability to limit our plastics in the drums, that's always favorable. But we basically put everything in there. Anything that we're not going to donate or auction or maybe retain for our own department. Now, some things like I had a front bumper from a hit skip OBI that the guy left attached to one of the residents' fences. And that was sitting on that oversized shelf in the cage picture from before. Now, something like that, we're not going to drag to the steel mill, but we'll throw that into the garbage if that's already basically destroyed as it is.
Yeah.
But pretty much everything, we do disposals twice a year. I do a disposal order in March. I do one in September. We get everything listed and over to a judge to sign off on. And then me and my partner that works with me in here, we go through our room, 2-man process, pull everything off the shelf that we need to, and throw them into steel drums. And then the day comes that we have to drag them down to the steel mill and they take care of business for us.
Excellent. All right. Well, that is good. I did get a couple of comments in here that Jason in El Mirage, Arizona, they take their stuff. There's a copper mine where they do the same thing. And so, maybe that's a little more common than what I believe it to be. But, I know there's all different methodologies. I'm sure we could do a whole webinar on just the different methods of destroying evidence.
I think everyone's always searching on ways to get rid of stuff. I think that's, as everyone that works property and evidence knows, that's sometimes the hardest thing to be able to accomplish, is getting to the point where you can get rid of something and then actually get rid of it. So we were in a bind this year because we had a drug seizure that was like the THC vapes. We had like 1,000 little vape cartridges, and the steel mill doesn't want liquid. So we were kind of hurting to figure out, what do we do with all these vapes? And there's a couple incineration companies out here that, they'll charge you per pound and go about that route. But we were able to turn ours over to our medical examiner's office. They were looking for, they're working on THC values for marijuana and oils and whatnot. So they were able to utilize those to be able to test their mechanisms. So that'll help out all the local agencies that are waiting on the new testing for THC as part of the way they changed the law.
Okay. I'm getting more comments coming in, and it seems like, having a partnership with somebody or working with them to do these, and it sounds like everybody's got their methodologies for doing it. So William from Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, just simply suggested that they use their local hospital incinerator for any for drugs or non-metallic metals, and for firearms, they take them to a steel mill also. But you mentioned, and I do want to affirm this, you do not incinerate your firearms. What do you do with firearms?
So any firearm that has a value to it that we've had forfeited over to us is our captain, our administrative captain, actually patrol captain, will take them and turn them over to an FFL. We'll get credit for them at one of the local clothing stores there, so we can buy equipment for law enforcement purposes. So, it's nice to be able to take something that has some value and, get a return out of it. So that's something the agency is okay with doing. If they wanted to burn all the weapons that we recovered and it got forfeited, that'd be fine too with me. And we just choose to do it that way. And that way we can use it to outfit officers and keep them safe.
Yep. So I did have another question come in, and I don't understand. I think I may have missed something you said. So let me just read the question, and hopefully this makes sense to you. But someone said, I like the community partnership aspect. Are there fees?
So like I said before, one of the incineration places locally for us, there was a fee, and they wanted to charge us per pound, and there was a lot of legalese. But for the steel plant that we use here in Northern Ohio, there is no fees. It's just a matter of contacting their security people, and they're already in partnership with the local sheriff's department down there. And since they're basically opening the door for them, they've graciously opened the door for other agencies. We just have to we basically have to set an appointment like 6 months in advance, and then you're on the clock just making sure you got everything you need done available. So no, not for us at this point.
Good to know. All right, well, let's move on to some of the others. Let's get into the actual evidence room, and you can just quickly run us through as we go through these. You can explain what's going on here, although I think everybody can look at this one and tell what's going on here.
Right, straightforward, processing room for officers. They come in, it's set up with, the software, the tracking software, and they can log in their evidence. They can process what they need to in there. We use, plastic bags with heat sealers. We also have obviously paper bags and so forth. But in general, obviously everyone's going to know what this is, the works property evidence, the process room. Again, one of the things for us was, man, I would have loved to have this room bigger, but it is what it is. This is when we walk into our side. So on my daily ventures, this is where I sit. We have a 2-man setup. The other guy that works with me was also a fellow that was in the detective bureau with me. We both came out. He's also helping me with property and evidence. He's a patrol guy, and he gets about a day a week. So anything that I know I need help assistance with, whether it's test firing guns or doing running around town, dropping things off places, it's nice to know that I have a little bit of help a little bit at a time, and it goes a long way. So those are just, where I get to sit nice and cozy during the day and take care of business on the property side.
Sure. Somebody asked the question, are those manual keypad lockers or digital lockers?
So if you go back, can
Yep.
you go back one image or two, actually? Yeah, so you see in the upper right-hand corner, those are the Digi Locks. Those are like hotel safes. It's
Yep.
the same concept. Officer can come in, they're packaging something up, hot call comes over the radio. What do you do with your stuff? Well, you could slam it in the locker, but if it's the weekend, your stuff's in the locker and no one's going to be there to get it out, right?
Yeah.
So the digital locks, they go up, they throw in their own personal 4-digit code, it locks the door. They come back an hour later, they put in their code to get their stuff back out, and they finish what they're doing. So we initially had one, we realized we needed more because guys were, getting caught up in this type of thing. And then the very below those other ones, I do have one with a key. So the one below the digital lock, there is a key hanging off there, just in case someone wants to lock it with a key and come back with it. They can do it that way as well.
Okay, so you got multiple options there. You're handling the people that'll work with the digital, but somebody that doesn't want to mess with it, they've got the key option.
Yeah, like I tell everyone, I'm here to make everyone's life a little easier. I'm here to support staff now. I'm not out there anymore making the big arrests or anything like that. I'm here to make sure that we're getting stuff in. How important chain of custody is with property evidence, making sure that everyone's doing it in a
excellent. So I didn't
way.
notice that from your other screen. Your desk is right on the back side of those temporary lockers then.
That's correct. Yeah. So obviously the door's open there. Again, it's one of those things where you had so much space to work with and you're trying to figure out how is this going to work. I have a series of AV carts and stuff I have to push around. I open those. The nice thing is I open up the doors. I can throw the stuff from over the weekend or the day before onto a cart, and I'm right in front of my desk. It's real easy to work with.
Got it. Okay. Is that a shredder in the background, or what is the BP 600?
Yeah, right. Interesting question. So, no, I don't have a shredder back there. We use the Shred It company that comes and picks up all of our documents. So one of the things about being outside and being a build after the fact was that I was concerned about just general filtration. So those that's basically a HEPA filter system, and I think it is out of Canada for those for viewers that are from Canada. That product line was from up there that we ordered from.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's another whole topic we could dig into is air quality and filtration, and that is something we're going to get into at another time. But yes, thank you for sharing that. All right, let's move along. Now we're in the actual evidence room, and so walk us through this.
Sure. We were just in the office. If you're standing in the same room, you're looking down the portal of what we have for storage, and we walk right into that first room. It is the expandable storage or the rolling storage, compact storage. Everyone calls it something different. But as you walk into that room, the ceilings are 20 feet tall. The next picture should show an image of our ladder that we kind of cart around. It's nice because we have the ability to, you might ask, why would you put something up so high? But if it's a case that needs to stick around for 20 years because of statute, look, we're just going to push it. We're just going to get it out of the way and, put it somewhere that's not going to be in the way from, day-to-day activities.
Right. Yep. Okay. Yep. All right, we're going to come back to that picture. I want to skip that picture. We're going to end with that, but more just walking through. I see all the shelving on the right and your expandable lockers.
Correct.
Okay. I don't know if there's anything.
Yep, same thing.
Yep.
Third room that's past the middle room. The cage system to the left houses firearms and our narcotics. Yeah. So that's just like another security method. Obviously, the safe in front of us. We have temporary storage of things that need higher security levels, and then it's your standard, your box and envelope systems on the shelves there.
Now, I'm curious, did you dig into, because I had asked you about some statistics, were you able to dig into any of your statistics?
Yeah, I grabbed a couple. Like right now in storage, we have 4,211 items.
Okay.
Which isn't bad. I think I've going on a disposed in almost 1,500 items this year, destroying. So we're pretty close to 1-to-1.
Yeah.
And that's been the luxury of being in here full time and being moderately busy enough to get through a day, but also having enough time to be able to put into disposition. So I didn't mention that since I was patrol and a detective up for 20 years, I also do pretty much all the case dispositions. Now I don't necessarily put the final touch on that we're going to get rid of stuff, but I review every case that has, if evidence comes in, found property all the way up, I set the reviews, I read the reports, I notify officers, investigators, and supervisors the status of each case. I think that's one of the hardest things we find is, in law enforcement is just that final piece. You make the arrest, you go to court, but there's that second half of, waiting till sentencing, appeals time, sitting on appeals, motions for return, all those things that can come in post, a trial or a plea that I'll sit and wait on and view. And once we get to that point where we wait about 60 days after any final decision, then I'll pump out disposition tracers to those involved, make sure everyone's cool, and then our administrator, who actually oversees property and evidence, gives us the sign off of what he wants to do with the stuff.
Excellent. And somebody asked, do you guys keep money in your vault or do you deposit that into a bank account?
You know what? That's a wonderful question. In fact, it's a wonderful question because we're having a meeting on Friday. And I guess the one point I would like to say locally is if there was anyone local to hear, we're looking into that because we do put money into a temporary asset forfeiture fund for cases that have money on indictment. So if you get indicted and the money is part of a potential forfeiture, we do move the money out of the safe and place it into an account. Problem is other monies that we get, whether it's found property, jail, someone from jail gets arrested, they don't let them take their property to the jail. So now we're stuck housing, property that we arrested them with. A lot of times it's wallets and cell phones. Now we have the money. And just any other case, say you arrest someone for drugs and they have cash and you seize it as evidence, but it doesn't even come up in trial. So we do house money in there, but we are on the lookout for the best method to be able to set up an account through the city. And in fact, Friday, we're talking with the administrator here that runs the property and evidence and talk to him about just that very subject. So I'm looking forward to finding out what we can about that.
There you go. All right. Well, let's quickly get through the last of your pictures because I want to go back to the cell phone one. That's where I want to spend our last 15 minutes talking about. But just more storage, it looks like to me. Anything interesting in here you really want to throw out to us?
No, other than there's a couple of the barrels that we've filled up, and as you can see, what we'll do is we'll tape them off. We'll sign off on them as they sit so that we know that they haven't been tampered with. Again, it's a two-person system that we're putting things in there to verify those items are getting in there. And then even though they're going to sit for a little bit, we tape it off. And, it's not about trust. It's about integrity and accuracy. And we believe in that wholeheartedly out here.
Yeah. That's that's cool to do that. Again, maybe everybody does that, but having those drums and doing that, and you were even describing that when you take them down, like these things are full, they've got a magnet that they basically reach down and just grab these things and pull them out. So like even the work that's required when you get there is minimal.
Yeah, it is. It's the first steel plant that did that. It was kind of remarkable to see the process they use to just move stuff about. But again, it's a steel mill, so they have scrap metal all over the place. They use those magnets to pick up all that scrap and throw it into the bins.
Sure. No big deal. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Anything else you want to throw out in here? I'm
that was that very last picture was the last one, I suppose. Actually going the other way. We were fortunate to get a little bit of more space, and the one thing that I was big on was trying to keep, I'm running a room, right? So I got the mop over there. I got my own tools. I got everything in my locker. I got everything I need to run the room. The problem was prior to this room, which we built out this year, was that it was kind of commingled, and I shouldn't say commingled, but it was in the same area, some of the property. I didn't like that for obvious reasons. You don't want to you know, if I drop over and someone comes in, or like, is this evidence or is this just something laying here with no tag on it? You know, so we were able to gain this area of the building, throw everything in there that is not evidence related, whether it's just extra bags or tape or whatever, and really keep that separated as best practice would have. We were happy about that.
Okay. Well, there's a better view too. Yeah, that's a better view where you can see the garage doors coming in.
We have a rash of stolen autos up here in Northern Ohio right now. And that was one of our recoveries from just yesterday. So that's been cheap in there. Like every agency, we got problems with bikes. Bikes just must grow on trees because people lose bikes and no one calls about them. I'm the biggest surprise of property rooms of them all.
Yeah. Okay. And then some of your other vehicles. Well, let's flip back because we're running short on time here. I want to get you off in the next 14 minutes. But when I saw this picture come through earlier today when we were talking, this really stood out to me. And actually, this blossomed a conversation, which tell me a little bit about, so when we get into cell phones, we're dealing with digital forensics. And, you know, in some cases, people are just storing phones. But when I saw the setup here and you're powering all these phones, explain to me what we're looking at here and why do you do it this way?
Sure. So actually, we have 4 of these little charging bays, and I only took a picture of 2 of them, just kind of got the point across. But so at Westlake, we have the luxury of having our own in-house digital forensics guy. He's a full-time guy as well. Does nothing but, you know, cell phone extractions and computers and anything digital forensics related. So one of the nuances with what he does he's a Cellbrite operator. He also runs Gray Key, certified digital forensic examiner. One of the nuances with Apple phones is when the phones come into evidence, and if they're powered, maintaining that power to the phone is a key component for him to be able to do his job as an examiner on the back end, which lent us to the question, well, how do we keep these phones powered for him? Because if it comes in on a weekend or something and it runs out of juice, then it makes his job that much harder. So what we came up with is generally if an Apple product comes in and it's powered and there's the potential for it to be examined, we have the portable charging banks in the processing side where, you know, an officer can plug that into the phone, get it into a locker, and by all means it should stay powered and gain power until it's found by myself when I come back into work. Once it comes in, we'll take that charging bank off, put it back out for another officer to use, but then we'll transition the phone to the long-term storage power banks here. That way we're able to get our emails out and make sure that the digital forensics guys and investigators are aware that our cell phones come in, and that we'll keep it on power until they decide that they want to do the forensic examination. If not, and we're limited space, so if they're not going to do it, it's nice to know because then we can just seal up that back end of it and get it into general storage.
Yeah. And I didn't even notice that earlier, but these look like these are all iPhones. So you're not doing that for Android devices. Is that correct?
Correct. So yeah, part of his examination, in fact, Rich, I'm sure will be able to do a webinar for you, and he's much better speaking about why these are the things. But any other product other than Apple, if they're out of power or run out of power, it doesn't hinder his ability to process that. Apple must have some nuances to it in the securities that once it locks down, you know, obviously if the power runs on and it gets locked down, it creates hardship for them.
So just so everybody knows, I'm actually working on arranging that our next webinar is going to be with his forensics person. We were trying to get him here today, but it didn't work out. So I'm just going to do a whole webinar I would probably keep it at an intro level to getting into digital forensics. And for those of you that may very well have been thrust into this world or will be thrust into this world, this is really important stuff here. And so I'm going to get him to come back and do a basic intro to some digital forensics and maybe show us how to do some of the work he's doing. But we're trying to line that up for another one. So questions are rolling in, which I expected on this. Those bags are not sealed at that point, correct? I mean, it looks like they're just sort of folded over.
That's correct. We want to be able to catalog the cell phones, and you know, we don't purport to have officers put labels directly on items. You know, these labels are made to rip and tear and not come off of one piece for a reason. So with digital evidence, obviously, if it came in unsealed and we were messing with it, or someone was messing with the phone, a forensic examiner would know right away that it had been messed with between the time it was entered and the point at which he received it. So we're not so much concerned about the aspect of integrity within the phone. The packaging just allows us to give us a place to put the tracking portion of it, get it into location, and then after the fact, when it needs to get back into general storage, then we can seal it back up and go about it in that fashion. You got to keep power to it somehow.
Yeah. Do you know offhand the make and models of those? I've got somebody asking because they're looking at these things. Do you know offhand what the make and model of those are?
Of our trays, our charging
actually the power units. My assumption is they're asking about the power unit showing off there.
If you want me to step off screen for a second, I think I got a box over there. I can do that. I can take a look.
I'll tell you what, we'll come back to that. We'll wrap that up at the end,
Sure.
but we'll definitely take a look at that. Somebody's saying, isn't it an issue that the evidence integrity front, if the evidence bag is open while it's plugged? I think we've already answered that because it's not. I mean, they're just using that bag to protect it, to not put the label on the phone. So I think that's all they're trying to accomplish with the bag at that point.
I think the one aspect that you would be concerned with from our perspective is if you're going after something like latent on the phone or DNA, something in that regard that was physical to the phone, then you'd obviously need to package it in a manner that's going to be consistent with being able to preserve that type of evidence. But because in general, when it comes through, the officers have already decided by putting it onto a power bank that they want to preserve this for the data, that they're basically saying, hey, we need the most important thing is the data. We have to keep this thing powered. There's got to be, you can rationalize it. You can attest to it as to why you wouldn't steal it completely.
And I agree with that. I think that's the purpose of a cell phone is we want the data that's on the phone because that's going to.
The phone itself is nothing.
Yeah, right, exactly. So somebody asked, do you put them in Faraday bags? I mean, are you worried about somebody remote erasing them or anything like that?
Sure. Yeah, we certainly are. Faraday bags we've gotten away from. Our general process is get the phone into airplane mode. And if you can't get it into airplane mode, then we are removing the SIM card. So we keep SIM card removers in the processing room, part of the packaging manual. Take that SIM card out, we tape it to the back of the phone so it stays put. And it's basically, at that point, you're doing as best that you can with the phone, to preserve anyone trying to remote it through that means.
Yeah, that makes sense to do that. And you don't have any problems with, have you run it as your digital forensics guy? Has he had any problems with you removing SIM cards, or is that that's fine and go ahead and do it?
You know what? That's the process that he's come up with to, for his needs. And like I said, he's really good at what he does. He handles a lot of cases out here locally from, Cleveland police use them. Everyone. He takes in outside work as well as our own, obviously, and he's pretty well known out here to do very good work for digital forensic examining.
Yeah, that's really good right there. And so somebody's asked a question: what about destruction of these phones? I mean, what do you? My guess is you're not sending these to the steel plant. What do you do with phones when either they're not returned or whatever?
So we're fortunate too because we have two methods. Because Rich is a digital forensics examiner. He also does chip off work, and so he will retain phones for department use because he'll rip phones apart, and if he has a phone that we need to examine and it has to be fixed, he has a stockpile of like a graveyard of old phones that he can go through. Or if he has a new phone that he needs to work on an examination, he can go to one of these other phones that we retained, practice on that phone to see if he can, get what he needs to off it, and then return to the phone that he's working on. You know what I mean? So it's a nice process. However, for the phones that we're just going to straight up get rid of, we can throw it right in the steel drum. They don't. The steel plant doesn't have any issues with circuit boards. Obviously, if we can remove a battery or something like that, we will. But we can burn them.
Got it. Somebody's asking a question. I think you hit on it earlier, but let's cover it again, just because I think this is a good thing to cover. Your officers are not walking into the room and putting them on that unit. They're putting them in temporary lockers. How are you sufficing keeping them charged when they're going into temporary lockers?
Well, like I said, and I apologize, maybe this wasn't clear. I have one. I don't know if you have your iPhone, and then they might, you know, I went to iOS 14 and it's burning the battery out of this thing, right? So I had to buy one of those charging banks, you know, like, so it's attached to a portable charger.
Yep.
Are you familiar? Yep.
Yep.
So we have a series of portable chargers in our processing side that, you know, once they plug it into the phone, that portable battery charger keeps that thing powered temporarily until I get my hands on it. I take that charger off, put it back in the processing side, then I take that phone and I'll go install it onto the bank from what you saw right there for the long-term storage.
So James Nally, James is out in Orange County, California, and he's always on these things. He's actually posted a URL for temporary lockers that are fully powered with Faraday bags. James, toss that in the evidence management community group. That's a good spot to. It goes right along with our discussion here today. So post that out on the community group so everybody can get that. I think I can respond here. Let me respond. I think I just sent out a response that went to everybody. So look at your question window, and I just sent everybody the URL for that. So I think that hopefully that went out to everybody. If not, look for James to post that in the community group. I know he's active in that. Let me see here. So we're actually coming up on the end of our time. So if anybody has any last minute questions, we're going to close this down within 3 minutes because he has to run off to pick up kids. His shift ends in 3 minutes. So if there's any final questions, toss them in there. Hey, and again, we're going to set up our next webinar and hopefully get the forensics guy on here, and we're going to do a bit of an intro to some digital forensics, and he can explain why iPhones react the way that they do. I find that stuff fascinating. It blows my mind. What people put on a cell phone and what you can extract off of it if you have the right tools. It's really unbelievable what they do.
It's good to know too, because even if you don't have an in-house person to be able to do it, if you get a big enough case and you have an iPhone that's powered, from our understanding from the way that the digital forensics are working nationally, is that if you can keep that thing powered before you can get it to someone that can do the work you need to be done, is probably your best bet. And that's the reason why we're doing it.
Yep. Excellent. Okay. Another question is he storing the phone in a fireproof cabinet? I'm just curious, once it goes into general storage, does it go into general or do you put it into a safe or where?
Yeah, phones just go into the general storage. There's nothing specific that we're I looked it up. We have 288 phones right now in storage. So takes up a lot of space. They just kind of hang out with everything else.
Okay. Somebody commented you have a fantastic beard. So I just want you to know that they've taken notice of that also. So for whatever that means, I'll let you run with that one.
Maybe it's a friend. That's the only person I could think that would comment on a beard.
Yeah, well,
I wish it was growing up. I wish it was growing up here, not down here.
There you go. Right. Exactly. For some people, it just starts shifting. See, I can't grow a beard, but I got hair on my head, so I'm thankful for that. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to let you go with that. I know you got to take off. Matt, I can't thank you enough for doing this here today. Let me know about doing the webinar in a couple of weeks with your forensics person. I know that would be very well attended. People would love seeing that. So if not, we'll work out another time. But everybody, thanks for being here today. Matt, thanks for your time, and everybody have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Bye-bye.